Hello and welcome to the local campaign. I'm Gord Martnell from City News. On October 19th, Canada will elect the 42nd Parliament, and Rogers TV is the only station producing debates of all of Toronto's 25 ridings. For the next hour, you'll hear from the candidates of Don Valley West. 2015 marks the beginning of electoral riding redistribution so that boundaries in the majority of ridings have changed, along with some riding names. So before we begin to introducing the candidates, let's take a closer look at the newly redrawn riding of Don Valley West.
The riding of Don Valley West is bordered on the north by Highway 401. The southern border meanders along the Don River Valley, the Bayview Extension, and the Beltline Trail. Portions of Yonge Street and Mount Pleasant Road define its western edge, and Leslie Street and a section of the western branch of the Don River are to the east. Neighborhoods include Thorncliffe Park, Leaside, the western half of Don Mills, and the eastern half of Lawrence Park. Recognizable landmarks are the East York Town Centre, York University's Glendon College, Edwards Gardens, and the upscale homes in the area of Post Road and the Bridle Path. The incumbent MP for Don Valley West is Conservative Party member John Carmichael.
Now let's move to the candidates, and I'll give each one 1 minute to make their opening statement. This will be done in the order of the most seats by party in the House of Commons, and therefore we will begin with Conservative candidate John Carmichael. John?
Thank you, Gord. It's my privilege to join you today, and it's been a privilege and an honor to serve as the Member of Parliament for Don Valley West for these past 4 years. Throughout our time, and since 2009, we've seen 1.2 million net new jobs added to the Canadian economy as we came out of the Great Recession of 2009. In fact, this year alone, we've seen an additional 96,000 jobs added in the first half of the year, and a plan for 1.3 million new jobs before 2020. We're clearly on track to achieving our goals. Taxes are the lowest in 50 years. We've seen 180 tax decreases, tax reductions since 2006, and a 2014-15 surplus, a budget surplus of some $1.9 billion. Additionally, our government is very proud of our Building Canada Fund, and we've invested billions of dollars in transit to reduce gridlock in Toronto and GTA. The purpose, obviously, keep Torontonians moving, get people home to their families as soon after work as possible. It's the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history, and it ranks about $80 billion over 10 years. It's a privilege to be with you today, and I thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. The next candidate is Syeda Riaz of the NDP.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to this debate. My name is Syeda Riaz. I'm your NDP candidate for Don Valley West. I'm a young Canadian woman, a law student, an activist and a grassroots worker, and I believe that we can do better for families in Don Valley West. I'm running because I believe the NDP can make families stronger in the Don Valley West with $15 a day daycare, $15 an hour federal minimum wage, better care for our veterans, and healthcare we can trust, which is why I believe Tom Milker and the NDP will work towards making lives for families in Don Valley West easier and better. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next candidate, Liberal Rob Oliphant.
Thank you, Gord. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with my fellow candidates and also with the viewers at home. This election, more than any that I can remember, I think is about the very nature of Canada and the future of Canadians. It was an honor to serve as Member of Parliament for Don Valley West from 2008 to 2011, and I'm running for two reasons. First, because I don't think my work was finished after that time, and secondly, because I want Justin Trudeau to be the Prime Minister of Canada. Under Stephen Harper, over the last 9 years, Canadians are worse off. Stephen Harper ran on an agenda of accountability, yet abuses of power and ethics breaches have been greater than ever. Canada has lost its position as a beacon of fairness and a leader of human rights in the world. Liberals believe that we can build Canada's future through historic investments in infrastructure, affordable housing, and green technology. We'll create jobs keep middle-class families growing and more prosperous, and help protect Canadian citizenship and their human rights. Government can and should be a force for good, and I will continue to work in that way as your MP.
Next, representing the Communist Party of Canada, Elizabeth Hill.
Thank you very much to Rogers TV for organizing this debate. My name's Elizabeth Hill, and I'm running for the Communist Party of Canada. We're a small party, but we're a very old party. We've been in existence, we're the second oldest party in Canada. I think you only have to look at the Harper Conservative government's legacy to know the critical issues and concerns in this election. On opening day in Parliament in 2011, a young page held up a sign saying, "Stop Harper." And that said it all, because Harper does not represent the majority of Canadians. We know many people don't vote, and we know we have first past the post elections, and so the majority of people did not vote for Harper. The Communist Party calls to dump Harper and vote for fundamental change. We're for people's needs, not corporate greed. I don't have time to go into all the people's needs, but we know that the 99%, rather than the 1%, are in need of good jobs and higher wages, not precarious work. We need to expand social programs, affordable housing, universal health care, daycare, and health care should include eye care, dental, and pharmacare. The environmental issues, the issue of democracy. We need to defend free speech and repeal Bill C-51. We can do this by taxing the 1%. We need progressive tax reform based on ability to pay. We need to double corporate tax rate. We have the lowest corporate tax rate among many, many nations. We need to no tax on incomes under $35,000. So I don't know how my minute is, but I think that's a start. Thank you.
All right. Let's get to the questioning now. I'll ask each of you a question, and you'll give me the answer. And then afterwards, after you've all answered the question, then you can debate with each other if you wish. I want to talk about public transit in Toronto. It is in a sorry state because successive politicians of all political stripes have punted the issue down the road. They've passed the buck. Let the next guy figure it out. We are now trying to play catch-up by building LRTs and new subway systems, but they are way behind. How are you going to fix that?
Well, Gord, I think the important element is, first of all, we have to identify it as the problem, and it's clearly the #1 problem for Toronto residents. We have invested already some $6 billion in transit to ensure that we're going to get that process started. It's been ignored for far too long. People stand on the Yonge Street subway train line and see 6 and 8 train cars go, trains actually pass before they can get on a train. That's unacceptable. It doesn't get people to work and it doesn't get them home. We've also agreed to support Mayor Tory's Smart Track program with a third of that investment, which is about $2.6 billion. We think that will assist in drawing people out to the perimeter and taking the load off Yonge Street, but there's a lot more that has to be done. We need to get these subways built, we need to get the LRTs built, we need to get new trains and cars on the lines, and that's what our government is committed to doing. It's the single biggest part of our Building Canada Investment Fund and our commitment to Torontonians.
Syeda.
We do need to invest in our transit with our Better Transit Plan by investing 1.3 billion annually over 20 years, and this won't only better our transit system by providing it not only for moving along with the construction, which would create more jobs for the people who live in Toronto, but also for the operation day-to-day operation works in our transit system. So transit is a huge issue because a lot of people use it to commute to work and find that over the years we haven't adequately funded our transit system. I went to York University. I started 3 years ago, and the transit system that was supposed to start by this year, or should have started by now, is still under construction. And those are the type of things that we cannot afford, especially for a lot of people who use transit system to get around this city.
Every day I take public transit, not during the campaign, but as part of my work life, and John is absolutely right that on the Yonge Street subway, cars are packed and people are jaw to jaw. I mean, this is the reality in Toronto. Also, our streets are overcrowded with traffic. And so we have decided that we need to actually double the investment in infrastructure over the next 10 years compared to what the Conservatives are suggesting that we need to do. So we're looking at a historic investment of $125 billion over the next 10 years in public transit, social infrastructure, including affordable housing, as well as green technology. And so it's $60 billion of new money that we want to put in. And it's a win-win situation. Not only are we doing things that people in Toronto want, we're also going to kickstart the economy. We've had 2 quarters now of contraction. We are in a recession, and interest rates are at a record low. So the timing is absolutely right to invest because interest rates are low. There's no more room for the government to actually buoy the economy by dropping interest rates. So what we have proposed is we will keep the economy going, create jobs, and add to the public transit infrastructure of the city. And it is a win-win-win situation. And we actually understand how we can afford it, and we have a fully costed plan to make sure that Toronto grows and moves better.
Elizabeth.
Yes, transit. I was in London, England a couple of weeks back, and if you look at the subway map there, it looks like a spider web of transit connections all over the city. In fact, nowhere in the city are you more than 10 minutes away from a subway stop. And then I look at Toronto, and we have this little skinny line, and we're numbering them. I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4. But how do we get to that sad situation? It's years and years of not putting attention into the social responsibility of public transit. And that affects our economy, our environment, and our efficiency. It's almost 20 years ago, I think it was the mid-90s, when the Conservative Ontario government cancelled the Eglinton line. I live near there. And the Eglinton line, they were digging holes, they had blocked the Allen Expressway for construction, and we would have been having that now had it not been cancelled. And I think it's very sad, and it's a whole issue of, are we working for the benefit of the citizens and the people, or for the benefit of the car industry and the corporations? So I think it's very clear everybody is aware of the problem of transit. It's putting the money into resolving it, and that has not been done.
Anybody have any other issues to say regarding transit?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. As I mentioned in my opening remarks on this, gridlock and transit are the single most important element that I hear about in Toronto. We've heard about this for years, and it's time for action. And clearly under our government, that action is taking place.
But you know, we've heard this, John, from every politician going back 20, 25, 30 years.
Right.
You know, the talk is there, but the walk is not there once the balloting has been completed.
So, Gord, is the York subway, the Spadina subway being built? Are the new train cars showing up? Is the LRT being built on the...
Why did it take so long?
Well, clearly neglect, and it takes action. I'm proud in the last 4 years to have been the representative of Don Valley West, being a voice for the people of Toronto to ensure that we get this thing built. We have to build. I don't know that we could afford, as Elizabeth suggests, a spider web of tracks, but we've got to get it started, and we've got to come up with a plan that ensures that people are going to get moving, get to work, be productive. It affects everything that we do in our economy. Additionally, the Mayor of Toronto has clearly come up with a plan with his Smart Track proposal, which adds to the benefit for Torontonians to get the job done. So I think our commitment to the municipal government, our commitment to getting the shovels in the ground, our Build Canada Fund is getting the job done, and it's gone beyond the rhetoric. We are delivering the cash today to ensure that Torontonians get to work and then get back to their families safely and quickly.
But I think it's got to, if you ask any mayor in Canada, the single most important change that has happened in financing urban transit and city infrastructure was when Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien established the transfer of the gasoline tax. fuel tax went to the cities. There's a $2 billion a year investment that has gone from the federal government into cities under the Chrétien and Martin government. If we want to take a look at what has actually started those projects that Mr. Carmichael talks about, it's actually that transfer of federal funding that our predecessor, John Godfrey, was actually shepherding through to make sure that that funding started. So these are long-term projects that started then, and what we've done is sort of a hold the course in the last 9 years, and what we are now saying is it's now time to kickstart it again with the most significant new investment since the gas tax.
Don't you go to Singapore? I've been there. You go to Hong Kong, many other centers, and we consider ourselves a world-class city. Our transit system is a joke.
So Gord, we've got to get it built first. Let's get the shovels in the ground and get the job done. Mr. Oliphant mentions the gas tax. Absolutely. It wasn't until actually our government made it legislation, provided the legislation, that made it law that the municipalities received those monies and could then count on them continuously on a sustainable basis. It's got to be affordable. It's got to fit within our economy. It's got to be something we can do with balanced budgets, which my Liberal opponent would tell you is something they don't agree with. But we believe in balanced budgets. We believe in delivering the results on transit, and we're getting that done. The money is being delivered.
Let's talk about budgets and balanced budgets and deficits, because your government, your party, I'm sorry, believes that the books can be balanced. The Liberals are suggesting that you can go 3-4 years before you attempt to balance the budget, that you've got to go with deficit financing to get infrastructure projects moving. The NDP is of the same position. But how do you...
Same position as the Conservatives.
Correct.
Yeah.
How do you suggest on the one hand that you're going to save all this money, that you're going to balance the books, and at the same time invest in infrastructure? How does that happen?
We've already proven it. We've delivered lower taxes to Canadians so they keep more of their hard-earned money in their own pockets, number one. They turn around, they spend, they put that money back into the economy. We're doing it with balancing budgets. We've increased revenues. We've seen actual revenues increase over these past number of years. And clearly with the 2014-15 balance and our commitment to a balanced budget in 2015-16, we're getting the job done.
Okay,
so let's get real about this. So under Mr. Harper, Canadian debt has risen $157 billion. That's the Canadian debt. They actually talk the rhetoric of balanced budgets. In 1912, taking us back in time, the Conservatives balanced the budget. The next Conservative balanced budget was actually in 2006, 2007, when they used a surplus that was left over from Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. The Conservative Party in those almost 100 years never balanced a single budget, where successive Liberal governments did. We're actually the party of fiscal prudence and responsibility. Our growth rate is the worst in 80 years under Mr. Harper, 1.77%. That's a reality that no one can contest. During the last 9 years of Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien's governments, we created 2.7 million jobs. 1.7 million jobs were created under 9 years with Mr. Harper. They are not good with our money. What we have done is we've looked at the situation right now, record low interest rates, a good debt to GDP ratio that is saying, as every economist in the country is saying, now is the time to keep the economy going by investing. That's what we're going to do. We're going to invest.
With your historic low rates, however, when you get into a deficit position, means you're borrowing money. So those historic low rates are going to start increasing.
Could.
Then you're in a deeper hole, aren't you?
Which is why we have a modest $10 billion a year deficit over 3 years, and will balance in 4 years. But what happens with the economy is once you're in a recession, it starts to tumble down. And if you don't do something to stop it, it just gets worse and worse. So what we're doing is we're going to invest in the economy and do two things. We're going to build the things that people want done. And if they're not going to be done with federal government help, no transit system in the world is built without federal government assistance. That's the way it has to happen. It's too great a burden on the property tax owner.
Syeda, what do you say?
Well, the thing is that we need to also take in stand that even though Mr. Carmichael and Mr. Rob Oliphant, they have good points. Some have good points, and we do need to balance the budget. But at the same time, how we're going to balance the budget is by raising corporate taxes, by creating those the infrastructure jobs that are by investing in our transit system, which would create 54,000 jobs, by lowering local small businesses taxes from 11% to 9%, from increasing 15% corporate tax to 17%. Before Paul Martin, our corporate taxes used to be approximately 30%. After Paul Martin and Stephen Harper, our corporate taxes came to 15%, and that leaves the burden onto middle-class families to pick up the slack, and it's not fair. So we want to bring up the corporate tax 2% more to 17%, make affordable childcare, because $15 a day childcare will help people who have to pay right now, paying approximately $1,600 or more a month for childcare. Having $15 a day daycare will help create the 1 million spaces over the 4 years.
And we're talking about transit, though. Right?
Pardon?
We're talking about transit, though. Deficit.
Sorry about that.
Right.
But this is it. Also, plays into the economy as well by creating that way for middle class families. And well, with transit, as I said, that by investing in transit, it would create more jobs for people who are in the middle class families. Would create 54,000 jobs, going back to the point, raising corporate taxes would kind of take the pressure off the people who are, caught in the middle of this.
Elizabeth, do you go with deficit financing or do you balance the books?
I would go with deficit. I think balancing the books is like a flag that's waved during elections.
Why?
And because people want to get elected, and they use buzzwords like lower your taxes, balance the budget. And most people are not fully aware of following the politics day by day. When the tax cuts happen, it benefits those in the huge income levels and the corporations. The little guy might save a little bit. We've seen the figures. But, well, I could use an instance, but my taxes might go down a little bit. But now I have to pay a prescription fee as a senior. Young people are not going to retire with their pensions till 2 more years. People on UI are on shorter periods. So you may save a few dollars in your tax, but it's going to cost the most vulnerable and the poor a huge lot more on necessary life-needing things. So it doesn't make any sense. Deficit, well, it may be necessary for a deficit in hard times, but if people are driving buses or looking after kids in daycare, or parents can find daycare at an affordable rate so they can work, these working people are paying taxes. And that is how you help the economy, not by cutting and cutting and cutting so that our social structure is so bad that people are desperate and are, rates of crime and all those other things and illness go up.
You mentioned something that is a sore spot with a lot of people, young people. In 1980, 26% of young people were living at home while holding down a job. Today, that number is up to 42%, and it is a very dismal, daunting picture. You have a lot of young people who cannot find a job, and when they do find a job, it's on contract, there are no benefits, or it's part-time. What are you going to do to improve that?
Well, I think that's a challenge of our time, absolutely. We have to find ways to better train our youth coming out of school, offer them more opportunities, find ways that they can gain sustainable employment that will allow them to build a career and prosper, is something all Canadians dream of. And I think with programs like our apprenticeship programs, some of our investments in skill development, those are the types of programs that are going to help young people at least develop the skills and trades that are necessary to provide them with the foundation to go and work and build a career that's going to allow them to put away some savings. We've also created savings on the through the universal tax-free savings account, which for those who have the ability to tuck money away, they can put savings either in an RSP or in tax-free savings. And we encourage young people to do that as well. But clearly, this is a challenge of our time, and I think the biggest part of that challenge is finding enough opportunity where young people will get out and work and have the ability then to move out on their own and raise their families.
Syeda.
I agree with Mr. John on this one, but on top of that, what the NDP wants to do is stop the unpaid internship that happens with a lot of companies, because it's not fair that they work really hard and they're underappreciated. They should be getting paid for the work that they're doing. And on top of that, by lowering that business tax from 11 to 9%, giving initiative to local businesses, providing that to local businesses would give them initiative to hire youth into their into the business that they own, or in general, yeah. Sorry about that, I got confused. But no, I agree with you, and those are just the few steps that we'd like to take.
You have young people, can't get a job,
yep.
Can't buy a house, can't get married, or if they do, they're living with mom and dad. They can't prosper, they can't move ahead, they can't grow. That's the problem. How are you going to fix it?
Our NDP candidate might agree with the Conservative candidate, but I don't. We have 13.2% youth unemployment right now. And that, I think, is actually, it's a much bigger number than that.
I think
given
it's
my
probably
personal
around
experience.
20%.
It's probably closer to 20, but that's the official number. And to think that they should be investing in TFSAs, I don't understand that. How does an unemployed youth invest $10,000 in a TFSA when they're living at home and not working? I mean, that is not a way that we involve youth. The reality is, and I don't actually think training is the issue. And I think, I've got dozens of young people right now working full-time as volunteers on my campaign. They are the most energetic, smart. They've got university degrees, they've got college diplomas, they've got amazing sets of skills. These are some of the most talented young people I've ever encountered, and they don't have jobs.
They're frustrated.
They don't have jobs because of the mismanagement of the economy. We have 160,000 more Canadians unemployed now than there were when Mr. Harper became the Prime Minister. He blames the world economy on this, and it is simply not the case. Canada is underperforming. Kids need to get jobs, and they get jobs when we invest in the economy, when we invest in making sure that businesses are engaged fully in things like our infrastructure program, and we will actually find meaningful work for kids that are absolutely trained. They may not be perfectly job ready. I wasn't job ready when I graduated from university, but I got a job because the economy was buoyant. That's how I got a job. I finished university, and you come out of school and you've got some learning. You don't have all the skills, but businesses invest in you because they're working, because the economy is going, because we had industry and manufacturing. This government has placed all the eggs in one basket, and that's fossil fuels. That's what this government believes in. They want to build that. The price of oil drops, and we go into crisis. Where is the support for manufacturing sectors? Where is the support for service and financial sectors? That's what we're missing, and we have to have a diversified economy that is buoyant and can compete in the world. They talk free trade, but the negotiations are not transparent, they're secret, and they never really come to fruition.
Elizabeth, what's your recipe here?
You mentioned free trade. I also agree. It's not an issue of young people needing training. I mean, you'll see job fairs where they're lined up in the hundreds, and you see young people. I don't know, when they counted the ones living at home with their parents, 42%. Some of them are living on the streets too. It is extremely difficult, and it must be very demoralizing for young people as well. We even have complaints about seniors working in McDonald's type jobs. Some of the young people are complaining they can't even get in there because seniors are doing it, because they can't live on their, it's all connected. The pensions, the issues of even education. Students can go through university and end up with a huge debt and no job. And that is very, very scary. We need to lower our tuition rates, and the higher levels of government need to help the provinces on that issue. And also the NAFTA and the free trade, they have Many jobs, plants have closed. Steel in Hamilton, what's it, U.S. Steel, was sold out by the Americans. I think the federal government put funds into it, invested in it, gave them money, and then they still moved south. And those jobs are gone. And every day you're reading in the paper about retail stores closing, and those jobs are gone.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big problem.
Let's move on to immigration. The Syrian crisis obviously has added a new element to this. We are being told that Canada should be opening its doors to more immigration, specifically the Syrian refugees, and yet at the same time the government has instituted new regulations that make it more difficult for immigrants to come to this country. What's your view on the Syrian crisis and how we can better their situation?
Well, Gord, the Syrian crisis is very real, and obviously we all saw the pictures of a couple of weeks ago of the tragedy of that young boy on the beach, and that ripped all of our hearts, ripped the hearts out of Canadians from coast to coast. And I think it brought to life the tragedy of what is happening in the Middle East and in that region. But this is not new. This has been going on for a couple of years now. The displacement of religious minorities, the killings, the tragedy of so many culture groups and religious groups who are being targeted by ISIS and by terrorist organizations who simply target them because they don't believe the same beliefs as they would. Since 2006, we brought 1.6 million immigrants to this country. We have a system that works. We have a system, excuse me, that is focused on bringing immigrants to this country. And clearly with the Syrian crisis, to date, we've brought some 25,000 Iraqi and Syrian refugees, predominantly Iraqi refugees, to this country through this crisis. We have an additional 10,000 that are in the process of being approved and sorted for coming to the country. And the Prime Minister recently committed to an additional 10,000 that he would bring, which takes us up to roughly 45,000 refugees that we believe would put us in the top per capita contribution to bringing people to this country to experience our freedom and democracy. As far as the issue of are we making it tougher? No, we're not making it tougher, but we are being more vigilant to ensure that we are bringing the right people to the country, the right people that are not terrorists, who are not coming to the country to find alternative methods to create problems within our economy. We have sent more officers from our immigration departments, from the CIC, over to the region to facilitate the application process and make sure that we're not holding up the process. I mean, the worst thing that could happen at this point would be that we create the delays for reasons that make no sense but create further tragedy. And we don't want that to happen either. So we've got people being designated and sent over to speed the process up, to ensure that we're vetting the applications and that we're bringing the families and those. In fact, I'll tell you, just this last weekend when I was canvassing in one of my areas, I met a Syrian family who were refugees and who came to this country in the last month. Wonderful family, and had an opportunity to talk to them about the crisis, the tragedy that's going on over there, and their plea to me was, please do it faster, do it more expeditiously, let's get people here so our families can reunite, and I agree with them.
Syeda.
I think there is something wrong with the system because the kid, he shouldn't have died because they did apply to move to Canada, and I guess he didn't pass the vigilance security check, and it wasn't right? On top of that, we want to bring in 10,000 refugees by the end of the year. On top of that, with the Danforth Jewish Circle, they want to sponsor a Syrian family, and personally my family is going to facilitate them with the shelter and doctors and other areas where they speak Arabic. And it's not just on a federal level, but just like that, we all can make small differences. I've spoken to a few residents in Leaside area and Don Valley West who have said that what we can do to help. Aside from doing that, you know, we can
So
individually...
we should increase the number of people coming into the country? Is that what you're saying?
We should increase the number of people coming in to save their lives, because we've already seen a child die because he wasn't accepted in Canada. So we have to avoid things like that, because we are part of the world stage. We have to be good Canadians, and part of you know, being part of the world stage, we have to do our part. We have always been you know, been part of the solution rather the problem. And after that kid dying, we kind of became that part of that problem. So we have to solve that issue by allowing more people in to save their lives. You know, will not only better the lives of them, but also better our country as well.
Rob?
A couple weeks ago, I was in a mosque on Friday. I was in a United Church on Sunday, and for Rosh Hashanah services at a synagogue on the Monday morning. And it made me so proud to be Canadian, because in each of those three places of worship, the number one topic, the number one conversation, the number one concern that was raised was the refugee crisis in Syria and Iraq. And it made me very proud. What made me equally less than proud to be a Canadian was Mr. Harper's response and Chris Alexander, the Minister of Immigration's response. I think it has been woefully inadequate, at times bordering on inhumane. The reality is that Canada is not playing its part. We are not doing the kind of extraordinary activity that I think Canadians are asking for. Other countries are, and if we are going to play our part, then we have to both raise the number of refugees, we have to support the processes, and we're not talking about any laxity in security whatsoever, because we understand the security issues, but Mr. Joe Daniels, who is a Conservative MP and running in Don Valley North this time, has already clearly stated, and there's a videotape of it, where he thinks that this is some sort of a conspiracy, that they're somehow getting a Muslim horde coming into Europe and they're going to come into Canada, we have to stop it. That is simply not the case. These are men and women and children who are dying, trying to get to a place of freedom and hopefulness. And Canada has to help that. We are not doing our part.
Yes, I think it's a bigger issue than the current one with the refugees from Syria. It's the whole policy on immigration. It was the Conservative government that cut health care benefits to be given to refugee applicants that are living here. And that created a huge burden on the provinces when you have, you know, it was very limited for maybe contagious things. It's the whole attitude, and Syria has really brought it to a head with the refugees. When I was a little girl, I remember it was after the war, and there were bigoted, racist people complaining about immigrants taking our jobs and things like that. And my mother said, you know, and you hear this, my mother said, that isn't true. Immigrants come to this country and they need a place to live, they get jobs, they buy food, they help the economy, they help our country. So immigrants benefit our country. And I've always believed that. And I think that we need to have a much more open policy toward people coming, and not have a two-tier citizenship level for them when they get to that point.
You touched on something there that prompted me to wonder if, when you're bringing all these immigrants into Canada, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's a good thing, but then you have 20% of young people without jobs. The immigrants are going to need jobs. So how do you balance that? I mean, you're going to run the risk of angering a large portion of the population because they don't have jobs, and yet you've got people coming in here who require jobs and assistance. So anybody got a view on that?
In my experience, actually, new Canadians, immigrants, build jobs.
That's right.
And make jobs. And I think we can celebrate those, and I'm watching them. We have an aging population in this country. We now have more seniors than we've got people under 15. We have 30,000 fewer immigrants came into Canada this year than last year than the previous year. We actually are needing more people in this country to build this country. And I just want to, one clarification I think is, I'm a Canadian by chance. I was born here, and the luck of the draw, my mom and dad were living here, their parents had lived here. By chance, I'm a Canadian. Immigrants are Canadians by choice. They choose Canada. They're looking for a better place. They're trying to do it. Refugees are not the same as either of those. They're Canadians by compassion. That's how they become Canadians, because someone opens a door, a heart, a wallet to bring them in. So there's three different kinds of Canadians. What we have said is we're all equal. A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. And that's my great fear about the current Harper government, is that they're actually now calling different kinds of Canadians in different ways. And this is very dangerous. It's a very slippery slope to go down and say that we're unequal Canadians.
Are you talking about the fact that the government says or is proposing that if a person who was not born in this country but becomes a Canadian and then engages in terrorist activities will have their citizenship
Absolutely.
revoked?
And one of those realities is if I commit a terrorist crime, or if a new Canadian, an immigrant creates a terrorist crime, commits a terrorist crime, we should be both punished. We're not talking about any laxity on that. What is happening, though, is somehow this is breeding suspicion and fear. If someone's skin color is different, if someone has an accent, or if someone is from another country. And it just breeds that fear.
Ahead,
and we want equality.
I disagree more with Rob, and I've listened long enough. I'm sorry, but first of all, that type of message, I believe, spreads division amongst Canadians, and that I disagree with entirely. Let me just go back to the Syrian crisis, because I think that I don't think we've spent quite enough time on it yet. Syrians coming to this, the refugees that we bring to this country, I agree, do come by the compassion of Canadians. We need to keep immigration happening in this country to fill jobs, to ensure our growth. And yes, our population is aging, so new immigrants to this country fill a void and backfill that void very, very importantly, and bring new skills and new passion by choice to this country. Now, for refugees, I've met with many faith groups over the past number of weeks who are involved in trying to find ways to sponsor families to bring them in. And I think we do have to do as much as we possibly can as a nation. But I believe there's a limit on what we can do, to the extent that let's establish what we can do and do it properly to bring the right number at first. And I think, you know, under our government and under Prime Minister Harper's leadership, we're going to have roughly 45,000 refugees that'll be here over the next while. We have to ensure we do that right, get them settled, get them here, and do that. But Canadians, if they want more, they're going to deliver that to their members of Parliament, and we're going to do what we can.
And that's fine, but what about the issue of terrorism for a person who is not born in this country but becomes a Canadian, automatically has their citizenship revoked?
Well, and to go back to Rob's point, that's Bill C-24, and clearly, if you come to this country as an immigrant, as a refugee, and you take out Canadian citizenship and you have dual citizenship, and you determine that you don't like this country anymore, and you're going to commit an act of treason or an act of terror against the people of this country, then rightly so, there should be penalties. Similarly, for those who might be singularly Canadian, there will be penalties. Caught, you'll go to jail, you'll pay a penalty, you'll pay a heavy price, and likely spend the rest of your life incarcerated for that treasonous or terrorist act in this country. But you have to be convicted first. Let's be fair about that. There's no
due process.
There's due process. There's no just arbitrary picking people up off the streets as some of the fear-mongering would be out there. But in the case of somebody who has come, for example, we've been reading about the mastermind of the Toronto 18 terror group, and there is concern about him losing his Canadian citizenship once his term is done, once he's paid his price here in Canada, and being stripped of his Canadian citizenship and sent back to Jordan. Well, I support that resolution. If he is here and has that much disdain and hate for our country, for our people, and wants to create a 9/11 type environment in downtown Toronto, then he should face serious penalty. Similarly, if a Canadian of only Canadian citizenship commits a similar crime, they're going to spend their time in jail, and they're going to spend an awful lot of it, and rightly they should.
On the other hand, though, your leader is suggesting that that shouldn't be the case, that a person who was not born in this country but became a Canadian citizen and committed an act of terrorism gets to retain their Canadian citizenship.
Just as a person born in Canada would not lose their Canadian citizenship.
But do you support terrorists staying in Canada after they've committed a terrorist act?
I believe that everyone should be, the punishment should fit the crime always, and that everyone should receive the same punishment for the same crime. That's the basic system of Canadian justice we have always had, and to change that changes the nature of Canada, it changes the nature of citizenship, and it changes the nature of the way we are. Syeda,
I was just going to say, I think so that in this panel I'm the only dual citizen right now, and I feel completely excluded under this bill. And I'm a proud Canadian, I'm a proud Pakistani. On top of that, when it comes to terrorism, Bill C-51 doesn't define what a terrorist is. So although you say that there's under this bill, if you're a terrorist, your citizenship will be revoked. But at the same time, under Bill C-51, which the Liberals and the Conservatives both voted on, does not give a definition of a terrorist. So I could be a terrorist. Any other person with a dual citizenship can be a terrorist, and I think that's not fair, right? So I don't feel included.
Elizabeth, what's your thinking on this?
I think it's a very dangerous path.
Why?
Well, I won't say. I was at a museum in Amsterdam, a museum of resistance during the war, in the occupation. And just the whole idea of creating a dual citizenship, I just find, from what I have seen has happened, it's a very, very dangerous path.
But don't you understand the anger of people in this country who say, look, you came here, we opened our doors to you, we gave you everything, we gave you food, lodging, you now have a job, you have a life here, then you turned around and stabbed us in the back by engaging in terrorism. Shouldn't their citizenship be revoked?
No,
if you
I
hate
don't
this country and
people
tried to destroy
engage
it, shouldn't you leave?
Terrorism because of citizenship. I think and it's not defined, and that's why it's so scary. If young people go out and they're against a pipeline and they do something which I would not advocate, or they're even part of, or they donate to a campaign to oppose a pipeline, could they end up being seen? It's scary. It's a path that is very scary and unequal. It does not fit the democratic feeling that I grew up with in this country.
The answer is no. Bill C-51 doesn't deal with people who donate to anti-pipeline or protest a pipeline. In fact, that was particularly excluded from that bill to ensure that this type of random behavior wouldn't be criminalized to that extent. But and let's be clear, I understood what Syeda said about coming from Pakistan, or family coming from Pakistan. Listen, the vast majority of new immigrants coming to this country come here with a dream and a hope to participate in prosperity and democracy and freedom in this country that we offer and that we all probably take for granted, because for those of us who were born here, but they've chosen to come here, and I applaud them. And so Syeda is a law student, and her family supporting the political process and doing what they're doing. They're one of countless thousands of immigrants and new Canadians who support the process and are doing the right thing to be part of this country. And I applaud that. And those are the people that I support. We're talking about a very small minority, a very small group that would take the alternative direction and create havoc and terror in our country. And we have to, Bill C-51 functionally was created to protect Canadians at our border. It's to create a better level of discussion and communication between law enforcement so that they can.
We don't want to beat this thing to death.
But one thing I need to make clear is that I find terrorism abhorrent, whether it comes from a newer Canadian or an older Canadian. That's what I'm trying to get through, is that terrorism is wrong.
Are we into this old stock and new stock?
Absolutely. There's no difference whether whether Mr. Harper's old stock Canadians or new stock Canadians do terror. It is wrong. There's absolutely zero tolerance for terrorist activity. What we're saying is it doesn't matter who commits the terrorist activity, it is equally punishable. That's all we're saying, is that absolutely terrorists need to be punished, and everyone should be punished equally for the same
We've got
crime.
a few minutes before your closing statements. Let's talk about marijuana. Legalization or decriminalization? Where do you stand on this issue? Because you know that the state of Colorado has done it, and they've had an enormous amount of tax revenue generated because of it. The state of Oregon, I believe, on Monday is going to institute a law whereby it will be legal. What do you think, John?
Absolutely not. We do not legalize it. Obviously you're going to get another opinion here. I totally disagree with the Liberal Party position on this. It's unhealthy for youth. It's unhealthy for Canadians, and I would encourage that we not decriminalize it or legalize it.
Syeda.
Our party stance is decriminalizing marijuana. It has been for the past, I believe, 30 years or so, and this is what our stance is on marijuana.
Rob?
We're an evidence-based party. We actually listen to experts on this. We want to control marijuana use. Marijuana is being used too rapidly in our society. It's too easy for young kids to get marijuana. It's very easy. But right now, 500,000 Canadians were arrested on marijuana charges. That's ridiculous over the Conservative government. $500 million, $500 million has been spent on punishing them, on bringing them to trial since 2006. This is a waste of money. So it not only doesn't work, the current system isn't working. We have marijuana being used. We have money being spent. We have lives being torn apart because of marijuana use. So let's regulate it. Let's control it. Let's find a way to do a better system. So just like we'll bring back the long-form census, just like we'll unmuzzle scientists, just like we will always look at climate change evidence, we will use evidence that is scientific, that is expert, and this is what the experts are telling us, to move beyond politics, beyond ideology.
Communist Party would decriminalize it, but I don't think this is the big issue in this election. But anyway.
Well, you know, the Liberal leader has said that he's in favor of legalization.
Yes, well, legalization, decriminal. Well, okay, legalize.
There's a difference between the two.
Okay, well, we would legalize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we've now come to the point where we have closing statements, and as we began in order of the most seats in the House of Commons, the dissolution, we're now going to go in reverse order, and therefore your closing statement is first, Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, you've heard from the different parties that are present here, and from the Communist Party of Canada, I would like to appeal to people to get out and vote. We do need change. To use your vote, vote for what you want rather than against what you don't want. So when you vote, and I hope that people will get out and vote, especially the young people, think about what is really there and what the different parties really stand for. We don't need austerity and war. Canada needs to create jobs, build the economy, and do things in terms of the needs of our people, not the needs for corporates. That's
Rob?
it.
Tonight you've heard some very different views and visions on the future of Canada. I think it's clear that Justin Trudeau is offering the only opportunity for real change. And that change is about getting Toronto moving, about getting people working, about helping middle class and those who aspire to be in the middle class, and about building this country as an open and fair place. Perhaps his greatest contribution on this is making Canadians trust government again, helping Canadians know that they can live in a country that their government will respect them and respect each other equally. I think that in Don Valley West, I am the only choice that can stop Stephen Harper.
Syeda.
With the NDP, we not only want to look out for the people at home, but we want to look out people overseas who protect this country and who are our veterans. So we're not only looking out for people who are at home, but also overseas for when they come back. To also build a better economy, NDP will help families become stronger, and which is why I believe that Thomas Mulcair and the NDP will be able to stand up to Stephen Harper into making informed decisions for Canadians who are at home and for our veterans and soldiers who are going to come back to this country.
John?
Thank you, and thank you for tonight. It's been an interesting debate. It's been my privilege to serve in this capacity as the Member of Parliament for this riding for the past 4 years. And it's been an absolute honor to represent the people of Don Valley West, and I look forward to doing this for the next 4 years. We have created, through our government, 1.2 million net new jobs since the depths of the recession at the end of 2009. This year, we've seen 96,000 new jobs created in the first 6 months of the year. We've seen the economy grow in the first 6 months of the year, including July and August, or June and July of this year. Results of GDP growth just recently delivered. We've lowered taxes to the lowest they've been in 50 years, while revenue continues to increase. We deal with a difficult economy globally, but yet ours is thriving, and we're one of the best places in the world in which investors find to invest. We believe in Toronto, we believe in transit, we believe in reducing gridlock, and we've demonstrated that by investing billions of dollars in establishing a transit system that one day in the very near future we'll all be very proud of. I believe I'm the only choice to continue the work I started 4 years ago, and I look forward to your support in Don Valley West.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to all of the panel members for showing up today and engaging in this debate. I'm sure the voters will appreciate it come October 19th. We did have some other candidates who were invited to participate in this debate today, but they declined. They are John Kittredge of the Libertarian Party, Natalie Hunt of the Green Party, and Sharon Cromwell running as an independent.
Hello, my name is Sharon Cromwell, and I'm running for Member of Parliament in the wonderful riding of Don Valley West. I'm running as an independent so that I may speak freely for you in the House of Commons. There are so many important issues facing us today, and rather than sit by and let it unfold, I have decided to throw my hat in the ring. My background is in security and law enforcement, and worked for almost 10 years at the Legislative Assembly with the Sergeant at Arms Division. Growing up in Newfoundland, politics was a strong thread in daily life, and I have great ideas to implement. I want you all to remember in this federal election, in our riding of Don Valley West, that you do have a choice for change. Please vote for me, Sharon Cromwell, to make the positive change so badly needed. Canada deserves better, Don Valley West deserves better, and I can give you that change. Thank you so much. Please vote for Sharon Cromwell on October the 19th. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your joining us today on the local campaign. The airtimes for the other debates can be found at rogerstv.com on the internet. I'm Gord Martineau. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye for now.